Hey guys, first of all I'd like to wish you all a happy new year. Hope you had a fantastic 2023. For Monkey Steals Peach it was a really big year. Kicked things off in February when I visited Taiwan for the first time and explored the legacy of many of the masters that fled northern China to Taiwan following the communist takeover and how their northern arts are preserved in Taiwan today. That was an absolutely fascinating trip for me. If you haven't watched that series, I highly recommend going and checking that out. Later in the year, in September, I then visited Hong Kong with my friend Damien from Kung Fu, and we explored a range of different styles local to Hong Kong, from Hung Gar to Northern Mise-en Luohan, Northern 7-Star Mantis, as well as several Hakka styles. We also got to meet a movie star, Mark Houghton, which was a fantastic experience. So again, if you haven't seen that series, make sure you go check it out. It was a really good one. And last year also saw the opening of my online store, Monkey Offers Peach, where I'm selling a range of channel merchandise, traditional Asian style clothing like what I'm wearing, as well as tea sets like this one, traditional Chinese tea. I'll put a link in the description, monkeyofferspeach.com. You can get 10% off your first order. Really appreciate if you guys can support the new store. That's a really big help to continue the running of this channel. And on that note, 2024 is going to be a really big year for the channel as well. I've got lots of stuff planned, so watch this space. And on that note, to start the new year, I have launched a new newsletter. So I'll put a link in the description as well as in a pinned comment. So the newsletter is going to have a lot of exclusive content, stuff about my own training, stuff that I've learnt when I've been traveling around doing these interviews, behind the scenes stuff. There's also going to be exclusive offers for the new store. And, with the way that the algorithms with social media are going these days, even if you subscribe to the channel or you're following on Facebook or Instagram, you're not always getting sent the posts and sent what's going on with the channel. So the newsletter is one way around the tyranny of the algorithms. Make sure you can stay up to date with what's going on. So, with that ado, let's get into answering all of your most burning questions. So actually, I didn't get any questions about the recent Hong Kong trip, which I was quite surprised about because the series has only just finished going up, but not to worry. If any of you guys do have some questions, leave them in the comments below and I'll answer in the next Q&A. I did have quite a lot of questions about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, surprisingly enough. So the first one, Steve Lee, an old friend, old Wing Chun friend from the UK from way back. Steve's asked me, do you still practice traditional Chinese martial arts? And if so, what? Or is it just BJJ and a little Taiji Mantis whenever? Yeah, of course. I mean, traditional Chinese martial arts is my life. It's what I do with this channel. It's what I've dedicated probably, 15, I think almost 20 years of my life to. I started Wing Chun in 2004, so yeah, almost 20 years. Traditional Chinese martial arts will be with me forever. The reason that I decided to start Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, living here in Australia, is because I wanted to do something completely different from what I've done before. I wanted to kind of broaden my horizons. I wanted to try something new. Chinese martial arts overall don't really emphasize ground fighting. I mean, I know there are a few like Ditang Tren forms, but it's a very different concept in Chinese martial arts. It's more about how to get back up quickly. It's not really focused on actually being on the ground. Whereas nowadays, with MMA being so popular, you've got to have a ground game. So that was one of the things. And I think another thing was also because I spent so much time in Asia learning traditional martial arts. I felt like when I came to Australia, I thought, well, what's probably the most proliferant martial art here? Like, honestly, Australia is not a really big place for traditional martial arts. I do have friends here that train traditional Chinese arts, and we often have exchanges and train together. But overall, there's much more of an environment of modern combat sports. I think like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, MMA are the really big ones. So yeah, another achievement for 2023. I got my blue belt just before I went to Hong Kong as well, which was fantastic. Something that I really wanted to do, and now it's just a case of taking the foundation I've learned and actually getting good at it. So hopefully that answers that. Yes, I do train traditional martial arts. I'll never stop. Continuing on the topic of BJJ, Joseph Levitis has asked me, do you transfer anything from your traditional wushu into your BJJ practice? I mean, yeah, very much so. My teacher, Giorgio Rojas, is also a Mantis practitioner. He's done Mantis actually longer than me, and he's very good at both BJJ and Mantis. And so in his way of teaching, a lot of the hand fighting, especially in stand-up or when you're going, when you're on your knees or whatever, a lot of the hand fighting that he teaches is Mantis stuff through and through. I mean, the main difference is you're obviously not hitting, so you're hooking, covering, but you're going for a gi grip, or if it's no gi, you're going for a neck grab. And yeah, a lot of the hand fighting, when someone's gripping your gi or gripping your wrist, how you're breaking it and moving around, it's all Mantis hand techniques. So that's something I incorporate as well into my own training. And also, I think sort of on a deeper level is the understanding, like the body awareness, the understanding of balance and your structure and the other person's structure. So a lot of things like sticky hands, push hands, those sorts of exercises have really transferred over onto the ground. It's very different, but once you get to grips with it, you can start to bring that same sensitivity and understanding of your body and the other person's body and feeling the balance and everything. Like I said, you can bring that in. So yeah, definitely the two complement each other very well, and I think that it's nothing but beneficial to learn both. And a third BJJ question, Duncan Delaris has asked me, we've heard about your BJJ practice, but I seem to recall that you went for some kickboxing too. How did that go? Helped with your Kung Fu or distracted from it? Yeah, so the gym where I've been training, besides BJJ, it also offers Japanese kickboxing, Muay Thai, full contact karate. So I've kind of dabbled with all of those, and I settled with doing the Japanese kickboxing mainly. Not as intensely as BJJ, like mostly just doing it kind of on the side, just to supplement. Because it just kind of helps keep, like the sanda that I've done in China, it just kind of helps keep that fresh. I mean, the rule system's a little bit different and stuff, but the basic techniques, the pad work, the punches, the kicks, the reactions, all of that stuff, it's good just to kind of like, keep fresh with that and keep on point. It's really good for fitness as well. So yeah, I've been doing that sort of once or twice a week. And another BJJ question, Randall Davis has asked me, you're in transition with your own training, still a Mantis fella but trying out BJJ and some other things. Do you think your journey is a lot more like what really happened in China over the stories and legends? Well, I'm not quite sure what you mean by if it's like the stories and legends, but I'm going to hazard a guess and say you're talking about people going around and exchanging with each other and finding masters they think are good and learning things. And so I would say, yeah, honestly, I think if those masters, like 150 years ago, when these styles were being developed that we practice today, if they had access to foreign martial arts, I think they probably would have adapted things, because a lot of these styles were developed before the concept of nationalism really took off in China. That was like a sort of late 19th, early 20th century thing. And that's the period when a lot of the styles really sort of like solidified into the styles that we practice today. But the people that were developing the styles in the generation before that didn't really have this sort of nationalist concept. I honestly have no idea what they would have thought of foreigners and foreign things, but I would assume that if they came across some kind of martial skill that they thought was good, they would probably adopt it, even if they wouldn't necessarily admit it came from a foreign thing. I think if they saw something like BJJ or like boxing type striking and things, they probably would have adopted something similar. So I suppose in that way, if that's what you're trying to get at, I would say yes, it probably is quite similar, just given a different, different circumstances. Okay, so Jay Layton has asked me, after interviewing so many styles, are there any you'd want to revisit? Also, what styles are on your bucket list to check out? Yeah, there is a lot of. I think every style that I've encountered has been really interesting. Everyone's got a lot to offer. I think I would like to go and see some more Baji Chuan and Long Fist. I got to see them in Taiwan. I'd like to go to Tangzhou in Hebei province in China to see how those styles are practiced there. That's always been a big dream for me, and that would be, I don't really. So yeah, sort of the Baji and the Long Fist and all of that. That's like a big thing that I really want to do, to explore more of. The Hakka styles I found really, really interesting. Very different to my own practice, but I really enjoyed the attention to detail with the body structure and the short power generation. So Hakka styles is something I would like to look into much more as well. And as far as like future projects, I don't want to give too much away. I like to kind of keep a bit of a surprise, but yeah, like Tangzhou, the Baji, the Long Fist, as I said. Also, I've always wanted to go to Japan, both mainland Japan as well as Okinawa, to explore Japanese and Okinawan martial arts. That's something I'm really fascinated with. So yeah, let's see. Okay, Morgan Olson has asked me, in the last couple of years you've run into and met lots of interesting teachers. Have any been interesting enough that you've thought about moving closer to them to study under? I would learn from all of them if I could, honestly. I mean, it's kind of difficult in my life at the moment because I'm in the process of applying for permanent residency in Australia, so this is a place that we've decided that we want to settle. So that's not really going to be practical. That being said, if I could, I would quite like to spend a longer period in Taiwan. Not necessarily about any specific teacher, but I would like the chance to be able to understand the culture and the society there a lot more and to immerse myself in that. If we were going to talk about teachers or styles, I think Baji Chuan would be a style I would like to learn if I was going to learn a new style. I mean, as I said in the previous question, Mantis is honestly enough for me as a traditional style. I mean, I've dabbled in lots of other stuff as well, like Xingyi Chuan, Xingyi Liuhe Chuan, Shaolin Chuan, Wing Chun, Chen style, Taiji, Bagua. So I've kind of got like, I don't know, lots and lots of forms in my head. So I don't really have the attention or capacity for another traditional style. But if, I would probably say Baji Chuan. So Joe Zane has asked, after exploring so many different practices and places, what have you noticed about overlap or uniformity across various systems? Okay, so I'm just going to talk about Chinese martial arts here. I think it's going to be too much if I talk about Filipino martial arts and Silat and other things that I've explored. Just talking about Chinese martial arts. I think the main sort of overlap or the main theme across all styles is body connection. So in the vast majority of cases, Chinese martial arts are focused on connecting the whole body, generating full power, from the feet through the legs, the knees, the hips, the waist, the spine, the dantian, through the shoulders, elbows to the hands. styles do that in different ways, but they're still chasing this kind of connection for superior use of the body. That's probably the biggest overlap, I would say. Otherwise, as far as strategy, I find sort of groups of styles tend to be very similar. So like Fujian styles and Hakka styles and Wing Chun, those three groups seem to have a lot of crossover. As far as strategy, they're all focused on Tun Tu Chen Fu, spit, swallow, rise and sink. They use a lot of short, explosive power. They use the body in a very upright way with a very narrow stance, like a very sort of triangular structure, and a lot of focus on sort of intricate hand movements. And you've got, for example, like northern styles sort of tend to be based on the interplay of long fist and short strikes. So they use a lot of big, wide open movements to build that whole connection, to generate power through the whole body, and then moving into these like close, very close range, body to body connection. There's a lot of influence from wrestling in northern styles in not necessarily that they're grappling per se, but just in the closing the distance, getting in close, using the whole body, having that whole body to body contact. And then of course Chinese styles throughout North and South like to use trapping and manipulating the opponent's limbs quite a lot. I'd say those are probably the main things. And also sort of the integration of striking, locking, kicking and throwing, Tina Shuai, Ti Da Shuai Na, like all together, tends to be something. So like throws are not just throws are often mixed with strikes or mixed with kicks or mixed with locks. Strikes can turn into locks, kicks can be used to set up strikes, vice versa. So there's this whole interplay between all the different methods, and that's probably the biggest thing. And on a similar topic on YouTube, Bruno has asked me, "Thank you very much for sharing your hard work with the community. Can you explain the differences between Sanjie or three sections concept and the kinetic chain we see in Western boxing? The classic text of Sanjie in traditional wushu says that the punch, for example, should start at the tip, followed by the elbow and pushing by the shoulder. In boxing, it's the opposite." I can't really tell you the difference because I've never formally learned boxing, so I don't want to talk about something that I don't know about. But Sanjie, there's a couple of ways depending on what kind of power you're using. And also note that Sanjie is not something we use in my own style Mantis. It's more from Shaolin, as well as Xinyi Liu He. But basically, one of the methods is, yes, like you say, starting at the tip. So it's like the hand moves first, the body follows, and then the step catches up. So it's that particular way of generating power is, to use an analogy, it's sort of like when two trains crash head on and how the carriages kind of cascade into each other like that. So you're beginning the movement with the hand, and then you're following behind, and you're sort of adding you're sort of falling through with the technique. Although we don't use the term Sanjie in Mantis, we do have that method of power generation. We usually call it bandao bu, or half falling down steps. So you're sort of stumbling into your steps behind your strikes and sort of creating this kind of rapid fire chain of strikes that are driven through the body. This is one of the big differences between northern and southern styles as well. Southern styles tend to always start power generation from the stance and the body and come through the hands. So it's kind of the opposite. That being said, the other way of interpreting Sanjie is also pushing from the body through to the hands. So if you are doing a more kind of shorter strike, then yes, you're like beginning it from the body and sending it through the hand. Okay, and also on principles of martial arts, Zach Alston has asked, "I had a question a while back about how hard and soft are used in CMA. People seem to interpret differently, but what do these terms mean to you?" So hard and soft, I guess you could say, would be the sort of the biggest sort of overall kind of, if there were just two concepts you could take from Chinese martial arts, I would say the interplay between hard and soft is probably going to be, along with the body connection that I talked about before, I'd say that the interplay of hard and soft is probably one of the biggest things. So, I mean, overall, it's really talking about whether you're like holding intention or relaxation. You know, at a very, very basic level, you could have a very soft, gentle hand, or you could have a very hard, stiff hand. That, you know, then applies to the body as well, like not just the limb, but to the whole body. And so, obviously, you don't want to have one extreme or the other. There's always like an interplay. You may be tensing one part of the body while relaxing other parts of the body. So, for example, if I'm throwing a hand in here, I may want to tense my hand up and push it forward quite hard, pushing against your guard to cause you to cover up. But my body behind is soft and pliable, so that I can move around and change my position while maintaining this point of contact. And then at the same time, if I want to counter, because I'm going hard, your natural reaction will be to brace against it. So then I immediately switch from hard into soft. So I switch to something else into soft and then back to hard again. So it's about both the strategy as well as like how the body is being held. It's also about, yeah, I think that's it. I mean, it's a topic that you could probably do like a half-an-hour video on, but I think just for time restrictions, I'll just keep it at that. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. On YouTube, Dipayande has asked, when you show the Kung Fu videos of different styles of different masters, do you also ask those masters if they will accept foreigners as their students, even if they're non-Chinese speaking people? I've never outrightly asked that, but as I'm a foreigner, I've never been rejected. I think I've had one instance. I tried to do a series on the martial arts of the Hui Muslims in Henan province, Qi Shi Quan, Xi Liu He Quan, Cha Quan, and a couple of other kind of rarer styles. It wasn't that I was outrightly rejected, but it was just too difficult to organize anything because they were so conservative and sort of non-committant. They're still very cagey about sharing some of the stuff, especially the Qi Shi Quan with non-Muslims. So that's probably the only experience I've had. Other than that, I think overall most of the teachers are very happy to teach foreigners. If you're willing to travel that long distance to go and train with them, to go and live in China or Taiwan or Malaysia, Hong Kong, wherever it is, generally they're really, really happy because, you know, you've made a great big sacrifice to go and you've made such a long journey, you know, just to go and learn what they're offering. So I think you're going to be met with positivity and met with enthusiasm. The language barrier is an issue. Obviously, I think that's what makes places like Hong Kong and Malaysia maybe more accessible because there's a lot of English spoken there, whereas China and Taiwan can be much more difficult if you don't know Mandarin. That being said, there is always going to be ways around it if you're really serious. I mean, a lot of teachers will have a student who will know some amount of English. I mean, you can always learn just through body movement and through mimicking. I mean, when I first moved to China, I barely spoke any Chinese, just a few survival phrases. But I would go to the parks and I trained with quite a few different teachers and I couldn't really communicate with them properly, but you know, they're able to show me like, okay, this is the basic stance, you know, they put your shoulder into position, put your elbow in position, you know, correct your wrist. Like, a lot of learning is done through touching and feeling, so it's not a huge problem. But I think to get to the deeper levels, it will be a hindrance. And also, just to follow on from there, with, you know, that being said, I do really believe that it's nothing but beneficial to try to learn some Chinese to deepen your understanding of Chinese martial arts, because Chinese language is such a rich language. There's so much meaning imbued in the words of the language, the characters. There's so much that's lost in translation when you're talking about Chinese martial arts in English. There's so much kind of ideas that's difficult to convey. It's not necessarily going to inhibit your skill development, but it's going to enrich your knowledge and give you a much deeper and more fulfilling experience, I would say. So if you have the opportunity to try and learn some Chinese, I would definitely say to do that. Even if you're not going to visit China, but just alongside your own practice, I really recommend that. Okay, and Jonathan Johnny has asked, spiritual explanation of the Kung Fu altar, like what does the cups, incense, colours, offerings, who they pray to, meanings and why? It's not really like phrased as a question, but that's not something that I honestly know too much about. That being said, in my Taiwan series, my friend Gis, he's really into that stuff. A French guy who lives in Taiwan, trains martial arts there. He did an explanation of a traditional altar in one of the videos in my Taiwan series. I think I included it with the 6 Harmony Mantis Masters interview. So yeah, if you want to learn more about it, go and watch that video. And there's also stuff on his own channel, Wushu Quest. So he's got a lot of stuff about lion dance, Taoism and folk religion. That's something he's really into. So yeah, check him out to know more about that. And on that same topic, Mauricio Chalons has asked me, have you ever witnessed in your travels of China the practice of witchcraft and esotery when you were training Kung Fu? I know it's quite an odd question, but I'm curious, like alchemy or something similar. In mainland China, honestly, that stuff is pretty much underground. That would come under like what the Chinese government would classify as cult practices, so it's technically illegal in China. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen, it does, mostly in the countryside and away from prying eyes. I've not seen anything related to martial arts, but I've had Chinese friends, one particular Chinese friend who's from a small village outside of Taishan in Shandong province. She says that she'd become possessed by some kind of, demon or malicious force. And so they invited a Taoist priest to their home, and he performed some kind of ritual and, wrote like magic spells on pieces of paper and burnt them and sacrificed a chicken and poured its blood. I don't know the entire details of the ritual, but she'd had this ritual done to her a couple of times. I know other people that have had similar experiences in the Chinese countryside. There's a lot of things like that in Tibet. I think Tibet's a big place for sort of magic and esoteric things. Again, you have to really be able to sort of have their trust, because again, this stuff's all suppressed by the Chinese government. Personally, I've seen that kind of thing in Malaysia. I was in Malaysia at Chinese New Year once, and it was I think it's the 9th day of Chinese New Year, if I remember correctly. They celebrate the birthday of the Jade Emperor, who's one of the big important Taoist deities, especially for Fujian people. And because the Chinese population of Penang are mostly descended from Fujian, so they follow a lot of those customs. And so on that day, they closed off the entire Penang. They took all of the statues out of the temple, put them on the tops of these cars, and then drove them around the city. And there was just parades of people following along, and a lot of them, as they were following the deities through the city, they were like becoming possessed, and they just would like start spontaneously doing martial arts, and some of them were like hitting themselves with swords and stuff like that. So yeah, in Malaysia you can see a lot more of that. I've heard in Taiwan you can see it a lot too, although I didn't see any when I was there. Oh, and the last question was from Wayne Hansen. Did you catch up with Kwok Wan Ping in Hong Kong? Unfortunately, no. Have a look at the episode I did on Mizong Luohan, where there's a segment where I was trying to find Master Kwok, but unfortunately couldn't. I guess I've just kind of made that a spoiler, but yeah, unfortunately, no, I wasn't able to. So, yep, hope I answered all your questions. Thank you for your support. Don't forget to sign up to the newsletter. The link's in the description and pinned comment. Also check out the store monkeyofficepeach.com for the traditional clothing, merchandise and tea related stuff. As always, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.